Hello everyone, it's Robbie Rhino here. Before we get into the main topic of today's video, I'd like to announce there is a giveaway going alongside this video. I'm going to be giving away one 2000 gold season pass, as well as one 2-skill 3D Nick Killian commander, one blue confidential keycard, and 3 lots of 7 days of premium. All you have to do to enter is comment with your gamertag and platform. The winners will be picked on the 14th of August at 10 PM UTC. The season pass should be credited by Tuesday the 16th of August, and the other prizes very shortly after that. And if you don't want to be entered for a certain prize, please let me know in the comment what prizes you are going for, as nobody can win the season pass if they already have it. Thank you very much for your fantastic support. Enjoy the new season, and I'll see you on the battlefield soon. Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. I'm Robbie Rhino, and in today's video we're going to be taking a look at one of the latest tanks to enter World of Tanks console in the Evolution season that started yesterday on the 9th of August. And today's video is all about the Cold War tank, which is the MAGACH 5, which is this one here. This is an Era 2 Independent Alliance premium medium tank. It's an Israeli medium tank, and it is a very solid performer with a nice Commander XP bonus. So in today's video I'm going to be showing you all of the stats of the MAGACH 5. I'm going to be comparing it to its competitors. I'm going to show you the armor profile and some tips on where to penetrate this tank. I'm going to show you my equipment and my commander setup should you wish to set up the vehicle like I have in today's video. And I also have 3 gameplays for you, and they're pretty honest gameplays that show how this tank would usually perform, I would say, for someone of my ability, but it does show you some weaknesses and quite a lot of the strengths that this tank has. So pretty honest gameplay, nothing spectacular, but decent all the same, and you still make a nice bit of silver and a nice bit of Commander XP. So how do you get this tank? Well, you have to buy the the ultimate, or the standard season pass, I should say. So the standard season pass is 2000 gold, the ultimate is 6000 gold. You have to grind to level 100 and you will get the MAGACH 5. It also has a skin called the Blazer skin that you can grind through and get at level 61. And if we scroll down here, we'll have a look at that skin. So the skin is kind of true to nature of the Israeli medium tank line. It's very kind of dull, but it is true to sort of historical accuracy, I believe, in terms of the colour and some of the markings. It's nothing sort of outlandish, so it's pretty cool. It's not the best skins, one of the best skins that I've seen in World of Tanks console, but you know, it's free in the season pass, and it's pretty cool. So if we look up here, this is the artwork for the MAGACH 5. As you can see, it's the pattern, hull and turret, and yeah, it's a pretty solid medium tank, and it has a lot of what looks like the explosive reactive armor, the composite armor, to stop those ATGMs that are all around Era 2 especially, and Era 3. So for the stats of this tank, we're going to head over to the Excel spreadsheet here that I have created, and the 2 tanks I've chosen to compare this tank to are the M60A1 Rise, which was one of the first Era 2 premium tanks, or maybe even the first to come out when the Cold War mode was introduced, and also the T62M1. They both have single fire guns, very similar hit points, and it's a good comparison to see where this thing stacks up. So let's get stuck straight into talking about the MAGACH 5 then. So in terms of bonuses, all 3 of these tanks have 10% XP. The MAGACH 5 has the 25% Commander XP bonus, which is 15% better than the other 2 in this comparison, and the silver bonus is the worst on the MAGACH 5 at 50%. You'll still make a lot of silver, but nothing compared to the T62M1 or the M60A1 Rise. But yeah, good for crew training and still pretty good for making silver. It's not a massive difference, but you would make more silver in other Era 2 premium tanks if that's your sole focus. And then we get down to the raw stats of the vehicle then. So we're looking at hit points now on the MAGACH 5, 2,800, which is very good for a sort of top Era 2 medium tank. It's 100 more than the T62M1, and it is 50 more than the M60A1 Rise. So a nice hit point pool for you to play around with. It's also got best in class view range for the medium tanks here in this comparison at 515 meters. And then we go on to the mobility of the MAGACH-5, and this is where some of the stats fall down in comparison to the others just a little bit. So you'll see here that the engine power is 908 horsepower, power to weight ratio of 18.08, forward speed of 62 kilometers an hour, and a reverse speed of 24 kilometers an hour, hold traverse of 36 degrees a second, and the turret traverse of 30 degrees a second. So when I say it falls down in comparison to the rest, you can see here that the engine power and power to weight are in orange, so it's not as good as the Rises, but it's definitely not as slow as the T62M1 is. Power to weight ratio of 18.08 isn't absolutely god-awful, but it's definitely not one of the best in Era 2, and you're going to be struggling to keep up with the flow of the battle at the end, trying to get the damage in. You do have a pretty decent top speed, best in this comparison at 62, and best reverse speed of 24 kilometers an hour, but you will struggle a little bit getting up to that top speed when you're going up some sort of even slight inclines with that fairly low horsepower engine. As you can see, the Rise has a 1200 horsepower engine and a much better power to rate. In terms of the traverse speed, 36 degrees a second isn't very good for a medium tank, so it is quite sluggish to turn, so you might want to consider improving your hull traverse with the traction system piece of equipment. And the turret traverse at 30 degrees is the joint best in this comparison with the T62M1, which does help you try and keep your gun round on target, and you can improve that with different commander and equipment setups. And the bits in yellow here is what's the statistic now with my commander and equipment setup, but we'll talk through that at the end of the statistic breakdown. But the best in this comparison is the T62M1 in terms of its traverse speeds, but it has the worst engine power, the worst power to weight, and it also has sort of in the middle of the top speed there. I didn't cut that in, but now I have, and now I'm happy. So now we're going to move on. So yeah, in terms of mobility, it's not too bad. It does take a while to get up to its top speed. It has the best top speed and reverse speed in this comparison. Traverse speeds can be improved to a fairly decent level, but it does struggle to get up to its top speed and does struggle with hills. So in terms of the guns that these tanks have then, so the MAGACH-5 in particular has a 105mm gun, the same as the Rise does, and the T62M1 has a 115mm gun. So the MAGACH-5's gun fires APF, SDS as standard and premium, which means that you're going to have nice shell velocity on your standard and premium rounds, and it also has an HE option as well with a fairly decent penetration level. Although a lot of this is covered in red, it isn't absolutely terrible. It's just slightly different than the other, and we'll talk through the differences now. So in terms of the damage that this gun does, it's 460 on the standard and on the premium shell, and 570 on the HE, with a penetration rate of 426, which is quite low for its standard, but it has exceptional penetration on its premium round at 494, which is the best in this comparison by a long margin, and it's getting up towards kind of leopard levels of penetration, so you're going to be able to deal with those pesky FV4211s very easily with that amount of penetration. And 250mm of penetration on the HE is pretty good. It's the joint worst in this comparison, but that's only because the third ammunition choice for the T62M1 is an ATGM, which has very good shell velocity, penetration and damage. So if we're going to be comparing all of these guns, shell velocity on the standard round, best in class goes to the T62M1 at 1650, but 1455 meters a second is more than enough to aim at mid to long ranges, and you shouldn't have to give too much lead at all, and that jumps up to 1494 meters a second should you wish to fire the premium APF SDS rounds, and that's the best shell velocity and best penetration in class on those premium rounds, so very nice premium rounds. And if you run silver boosters, and even if you don't, you're still going to make a lot of silver regarding you hit and you penetrate your premium rounds with this tank because of the nature of the silver economy in the Cold War game mode. In terms of the HE rounds, you can penetrate 250mm, but just don't fire it spaced armor or the composite or explosive reactive armor. Make sure you're firing at the back of a sort of pattern-like tank, another MAGACH-5, something like that, and you should be able to penetrate. And some of the Leopards and light tanks you can penetrate and boost your alpha damage to 570. One thing to note with the alpha damage on the Rise is that it goes up by 20 if you just fire the standard rounds, but that also has heat as its second, and also as its, I was going to say its third, but it doesn't. It has HE. I just wrote that down wrong, but it has heat, as does the T62M1, which means that it does struggle against all of the spaced armour and composite armour in Era 2. So I feel that APF SDS is the best ammunition choice for a premium round. And yeah, the ATGMs on the T62M1 aren't really a comparison to the MAGACH-5, but it's just to show you that it's the third ammunition choice. And now we're going to come on to the gun handling and DPM. So as you can see here, it's coloured in green for the aim time, so it is best in class at 1.8 seconds, which is phenomenal. You don't need to improve that an awful lot, but it does go down to a pretty good level with my commander and equipment setup. Worst in class is the T62M1, and the rise is just behind at 1.9 seconds. Accuracy, though, it is worst in class at 0.34, which isn't the worst thing in the world, because I've got it down to 0.23 now. If you choose to follow my commander and equipment setup, you can get it down with the commander skills that we have available now in the game, so there's nothing to worry about too much, but it can feel a little bit derpy sometimes. It'll just occasionally miss a shot, and that's because of that accuracy there. The best in class goes to the T62M1, and the rise is just a little bit behind the T62M1 at 0.33. In terms of the raw DPM, then, you're looking at a DPM of 3,367.2 on the MAGACH-5, which is in between the worst, which is the T62M1 at 3.2, and the best, which is the Rise at 3.4, and that is because that little jump in alpha damage should you fire just the APF SDS rounds on the M60A1 Rise. Worst DPM is that 3,200 on the T62M1, so it's a pretty decent DPM, and you can boost that up. As you see, I boosted mine to 4,425, which means that my reload now is 8.2 seconds base. In terms of ammo capacity, it's somewhere in the middle of the Rise on the T62M1, carrying 54 rounds, but it does have joint best in class gun elevation and depression at 9 degrees of depression and 19 degrees of elevation, much better than the T62M1's 3 degrees. God-awful 3 degrees of gun depression and 70 degrees of elevation, so it's pretty good all-round tank. Looking at the statistics of the MAGACH-5, I'll tell you my commander and equipment setup now. We'll look at the updated statistics, and then we will look at the armor profile and get into the gameplay of this tank. So on the MAGACH-5, I have chosen to run advanced loader, improved ventilation, and gun stabilizer, and on my commander I run 6th sense, born leader, rapid loading, steady aim, rapid aim, snapshot, run and gun, armor angling, and track mechanic. In terms of the equipment, with the loader and ventilation, I'm just trying to improve that DPM as much as possible to negate for the fact that you have to make more damage to make more silver in this tank, which is what I was going for in this tank, because I don't really need to train too many commanders at the moment. And the gun stabilizer, because of the worst in class in terms of this comparison accuracy for an Era 2 medium tank. And with my commander, a lot of gun handling skills to improve that accuracy down to that very decent level that we have got now. Armor angling to just reduce some of the damage I'm taking, and I also use this crew on some of the other heavy tanks in Cold War as well. Track mechanic to get the tracks on quicker, rapid loading to improve the DPM, and 6th sense and born leader as standard. So with those updated statistics, I now have a view range of 548 meters. My turret traverse has improved to 35.13, which is pretty good. It's now very similar to my whole traverse, meaning that they both move roughly the same level, so it's relatively easy to get around my gun around on target and shoot at things that are trying to circle me. In terms of my gun handling then, my aim time is now 1.69 seconds, which is absolutely great. Accuracy of 0.23, which is absolutely fantastic. My DPM is now 4,425, which is very respectable, which means I now have a base reload of 6.24 seconds. So that's it for the statistic breakdown of the MAGACH-5. It's very good all-round tank, as you can see, and that little extra commander boost is a nice niche for the MAGACH-5. But now we're going to head over to the garage, have a look at the armor profile, and then get stuck into the gameplay. So we're now into the garage and having a look at the armor viewer of the MAGACH-5. It has lots of different levels of armor, as do many of the tanks in the Cold War game mode, especially in Eras 2 and 3, because they all have, or most of them have, the explosive reactive armour that protects against ATGM and HE ammunition. You can't really predict the effective armour values, it just comes from experience and playing the tank. So I'm going to go through some of the things that I found out about this tank, and hopefully they will help you during the gameplays that you play in this tank if you decide to get the season pass and get this tank. So the first talking point is the strongest part of the armour, which is 254mm. This is just around the gun here, and that's a very sort of easy penetration for a lot of rounds. And of course it does have space protection, as you can see over the front of the magnet, but sort of to the left and right, up and down of that, if you're penetrating that and you're missing the parts of the explosive reactive armour, and if you're not sure what the explosive reactive armour is, it's the brick-like patterns on the frontal part of the hull, on the lower plate, and the all over the turret, basically in random parts to protect against ATGM and HE. But if you miss them and you're firing an APF SDS round, something like that, you should be able to go through this with even average penetration. And it's quite a weak turret, I found. Even if you're using the extent of the 9 degrees of gun depression, this turret can struggle against a lot of tanks. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't play the whole damn gameplay, because it should. It just means that you shouldn't sit out in front of tanks unless you know they have very poor penetration, or maybe if they're firing ATGMs or HE, you could risk it and chance it and try and reduce the damage, or just absorb the damage completely. The next thing I want to talk about is directly behind the gun. It's just 241mm. You can penetrate that very easily as well if you have a very high penetration round to get through the part of the spaced armour over the front of the gun. The next part is these banding parts here to the sort of left and right of the turret. So if it's not looking at you, you can penetrate through that very easily. It's only 203mm of armour. If it is looking at you, then don't shoot it, because it is a rounded turret and you're most likely just going to ricochet or get your shell absorbed into one of the thickest parts of the explosive reactive armour on this tank. The next thing I want to talk about is the turret ring. If you're getting face hugged by this tank, you can sort of look into the turret ring, shoot that and penetrate. It's only 177mm thick, and you should be able to go through that no problem. The next thing I wanted to talk about is these parts on the lower part of the hull here. They're only 110mm here. There's 101mm on the lower part of the lower plate, and you can see that brick pattern there, which goes up to the sort of welded between the upper hull and the lower part. You should be able to penetrate anything that isn't the explosive reactive armour. Even the APF SDS rounds will go through the ERA armour, but if you're firing heat, make sure you avoid the brick-like patterns on the front of this tank, and you should be able to penetrate anywhere on the frontal hull or the lower plate. And if you're firing ATGMs, don't be fooled into shooting the brick-like patterns to the upper part of the lower plate or the upper part of the upper hull. You can also shoot this part here, which is 152mm, which is the join between both the upper and the lower hulls. There isn't any ERA armour over this bit, and you should be able to go through that quite easily with average to sort of high penetration rounds. The next thing to note would be the sort of corners here of the lower hull. If you're it's coming around a corner, you can shoot, go through that and damage and track the tank as well. That's a very easy penetration for pretty much every round in Era 2. And then we're going to get onto the side armour. So the front portion is 76mm and the back portion is 50mm, so it's not a great side scraper. You can still do that to reduce the target that your enemies have to shoot, but be careful, because you will get overmatched at the rear of this tank by some of the high caliber rounds that the tanks have in the Cold War game mode. And also, just to note, it has a cupola there, as you can see to the top left of the turret. That's 50mm portion there, and I think the strongest part on the turret is this 76mm bit here, so that's a very easy part to hit if you're trying to penetrate the front of this tank. It's a very easy penetration. Rather than shooting the turret ring or the sides in between the ERA armour, you can just shoot the cupola. That should be quite easy. But apart from that, there's just lots of different sections sections here, as you can see, of spaced armour all over the front of this tank, especially here. You have to be very careful when you're shooting at this tank with ATGMs. You have to avoid these parts of the tank, these patterns. Just get round it, shoot it in the rear, shoot onto the engine deck if you're above it or on top of the turret, or you can shoot the lower part of the lower plate, or sort of to the left and right of the upper hull, and it should be a relatively easy penetration. One last thing to mention is that this thing has absolutely awful rear armour, and you will get penetrated by HE rounds. So the lower portion is 38mm thick. That will be an easy penetration for HE rounds. The lower portion is 30mm, the middle portion is 38, sorry, and the top is 25mm, which is susceptible to ATGMs, HE, and any round. This is going to get overmatch penetrated, and most likely it's going to set you on fire, damage your fuel tanks or something like that. So that's basically it. The tracks themselves are 20mm thick, but it's kind of an all-rounder. You can't rely on it, but it does ricochet some shells and it does protect you from the ATGMs, which is nice while you're moving around and playing that whole damn gameplay that this tank performs at very well with the 9 degrees of gun depression. So that's it for the armor viewer on the MAGACH-5. I'm now going to jump into the first gameplay. So you join me here on Kasserine in the MAGACH-5. This is the first gameplay in today's video, and this is a fantastic map to showcase this tank because it has so many ridge lines, lots of sight lines, to see how this gun performs and also how this tank performs on a ridge line, and that's how you're going to want to play this tank. So we're going to use the relatively slow engine power but pretty good top speed to get into position at the start of this battle on a ridgeline. We're going to scan the horizon for any light tanks that like to sit in the north and sort of central part of this map at the start of the battle, just so we didn't get surprised by any tanks coming down in behind us with an ATGM and taking off half our health at the start of the battle. And then we're going to try and advance from bridge to ridge, trying to advance the battle and sort of win this section of the canyon or ravine or whatever you want to call it, and see if we can push around towards the north and then come back down from the north down the eastern side and protect our cap circle should we have to. So I'm going to set up in this location here in G6 at the start of this battle. I've got a ridgeline in front of me which is protecting me from the enemies towards the north, and I have a rock to my right and teammates to my left, so I should be covered from all areas and I shouldn't get surprised by anyone. I'm going to use the relatively decent DPM of this tank. You're seeing here that the shell velocity isn't too bad at all. We're hitting most of the shells that we fire. We might not be penetrating all of them because of the pretty lackluster APF SDS penetration that this tank has, but if we need to, we have lots of premium APF SDS rounds should we require them to penetrate, and be wary of the shell drop off in penetration over distance with the APF SDS rounds. This does work better at mid to sort of short ranges. However, fire the extra high penetration if you're firing at long distances for that little bit of extra penetration. That's the only thing that these rounds are worse at, in my opinion, than the heat rounds in Cold War, is the penetration drop off over distance. We get a nice bounce there because we are angled in such a way from that ridgeline that we would have bounced anything unless they hit our track wheel and penetrated us. We reacted just in time to that Sheridan, turned round our front to face him, and his ATGM gets absorbed by our ERA armour, and that's a good showcase of how resilient this medium tank can be. I saw this M50 Ontos here. Unfortunately for me, I thought he was going to stay in that little dip there. Our engine power means that we only got a minute ram on that tank, and it doesn't weigh that much, so we should have done a lot more, even have finished that tank off with that ram. We did advance using the enhancement string, which I like to run on this tank to get me out of jams and to provide extra protection from ATGMs that are incoming. And you can see that they were updated with the evolution update, so they now explode in mid-air and give you more cover from above as well as just in front of you and sort of to the sides and behind you. So now we're just advancing position. We're going further and further sort of north and northeast where the tanks are, and we're using these ridgelines to advance. The mobility isn't too bad for this kind of map, but should we need to get out of harm's way now, if all of these tanks came at me at once and my teammates didn't back me up, then we would be stuck here. That's just a risk you're going to have to take if you play the tank in the same way and you don't use the traction equipment. And that's one thing that I did want to touch upon now, is if you didn't like the setup that I use and maybe you just couldn't hack the mobility in this tank, you've got the season pass, you've got this tank and you're struggling with it in the mobility, you could invest it in the advanced powertrain and the traction system. I wouldn't say that it's absolutely necessary for the gun stabilizer or for the ventilation for the DPM. If you found that the DPM was good enough already, I would recommend just taking the traction system and the advanced powertrain and improving your mobility, and that would in turn, improve your traverse speeds as well as your raw engine power and your top speed. So we've come up behind these tanks here in the north. I should have sat back on that ridgeline. Here I'm making a massive mistake going after this MAGACH 1-for-1, although it works out okay in terms of our fight with him. This is basically the downfall of our game here, and possibly our team's game as well. I was trying to test the armor a little bit here and see what kind of works. I'm just sort of angling at roughly 45 degrees, rocking backwards and forwards and trying to wiggle a little bit and seeing what bounces off me, but it was at this point I noticed I made a terrible mistake. I believe my gunner gets injured, my turret's been damaged already, and I think it gets damaged again. We make the fatal flaw there of auto-aiming, especially with a damaged turret. And now I wouldn't say I'm panicking, but I just know the game's up now. I can't get my turret round for a final shell to finish this game off. And I left my team there with a very difficult game to turn around. It goes on for quite a while now, and unfortunately we do get sort of annihilated from now on, so I blame myself for the team's loss there. I'm just trying to make the mediums that are aware of the enemies that are going in the north. Probably a little bit of frustration as well, but we still had a fairly decent game, doing just over 7k direct damage. So I'm going to jump to the end of this battle and then we'll get talking about the next gameplay. So unfortunately for us, that was a defeat. We get annihilated in the end, but we do pick up 2 kills. We finish MVP on our own team. We have 7,085 damage, 722 assistance, and we make a profit of 322,362,000 silver with a commander XP bonus with a premium count of 1,732. So that's it for the first gameplay. We'll get now into the second one. Righty ho then, we're now on Fisherman's Bay in the second gameplay of today's video, and at the start of this battle I am going to go to the centre ridge along the sort of E line or the F line and just shoot at anything that tries to poke over too much, try and get some spotting assistance at the start of the battle and see if we can bounce anything off of our turret. So notice that a lot of our team are going towards the sort of 1-2 line, as they tend to do in the World War II and the Cold War game mode, but I'm going to go here anyway because if anything pushes over me, they should all be able to shoot what I am spotting. That obviously isn't always the case, but hey ho. We noticed this T92 who has tried to do a spotting run. We fortunately got a tracking shot into him. We got a subsequent shot in, and we're going to see if we can get another one as he tries to escape. And this is where you're noticing that DPM is pretty good. We free aim that one at the T92. He looks like he is tracked again, so we get another shot into his turret, and now we've taken him down to a 1 shot, and he won't be very happy with us at all. And that's the kind of power that you have with this DPM and this gun handling. It's a very solid performer. It's not the absolute best in kind of any stat really, but it is pretty good as an all-rounder, and it's got exceptional premium penetration, and that's just the tank really in a nutshell. And it's just a very enjoyable, easy tank to play, I'd say. Very good for a newer player. It's got a bit of forgiving armour, good gun handling, makes you a pretty good amount of silver, and it also does train your commanders up, and that's also good for a new player as well. So we're just trying to get any shots into all of the tanks that have pushed down into the town and they're coming up towards our base. I'm just a little bit wary. If they all push out once, then I'm going to be exposed to all of them, and with my mobility I'm going to have to try and get out of the way. So I've made the decision to come here to the centre. My team's pushed all the way down the 1-2 line, so I should be safe from anything in the sort of northwestern corner, and I get to shoot at all of the tanks that are trying to retreat from the north of the map. So we've outcamped them or outfought them on the 1-2 line. We've actually pushed forward, which I've never seen before. before in my life, and now we are just using the advantage that our team have given us to get some shells in as they retreat, and now we're going to go after them. We do notice this FV4 to 11 here, which could become a little bit of a problem for us, so I switched to those premium rounds. They will be more than enough to go through the front of the FV4 to 11. You'll see here that we can go straight through his lower plate there with these rounds, and then we're going to back up using the fairly decent reverse speeds and see if he bounces off of us, but it looks like he either caught our turret and penetrated or caught our upper hull and penetrated. And now he's distracted. We're going to get a shot into his drive wheel. It looks like we damaged his ammo rack, and he gets subsequently taken out by our MAGACH-3, and we're just going to push the tempo. The mobility I found is still more than enough to sort of get around the battlefield in the majority of battles, which is the reason I've invested so heavily into the gun handling and the DPM of this tank. And now we're just going to be that kind of support gameplay. We've used our ramming potential there on another tank. You're a fairly hefty tank. You can ram for a substantial amount of damage. You will take quite a lot of damage from tanks that weigh the same as you, of course, but I don't really mind that kind of gameplay. I like leading the charge and being aggressive, and sometimes it works out really well and sometimes it doesn't, but I felt like the damage was going to go pretty quickly in this game, so I'm just trying to get damage in any way I can. And now it's just 2 tanks left, so I've decided to go after the medium tank that isn't spotted yet. I cheekily fired the smoke there, and the reason I did that was pretty scumbaggy. I was just hoping to block view from my friendly should I manage to find the Tyran 6, but karma hits me and I hit the wall. And the enemy tank drowns himself, but we still had a damn good game nonetheless. So that's 6.3k direct, 2.2k assistance. We get the first class medal there, 1376 base experience points, and a very nice game for the MAGACH-5 with 366,553 silver made and 3.5k Commander XP, showing you the potential earnings of this tank. So that's it for the second gameplay. Let's get to the third one. So then we're now into the third and final gameplay of today's video in the MAGACH-5, and we're here on Siegfried Line, which is a very weird map for Cold War tanks because of the true vision system. Within the first sort of 30 seconds of the battle, pretty much everyone is spotted depending on the spawns in the middle of the field, which can be so annoying if you're in the field to try and get out of. So we're going to set up here on this ridgeline and see if we can get any early snipes off. Unfortunately for us, there are 3 of us on the same ridgeline, and it is going to be a bit of a nightmare to maneuver and get shots off without getting spotted, because we're going to be a big block on the horizon. So we're just going to move forward. Our team have moved forward to the next ridgeline and see if we can get any shots off towards the north and into the field. It doesn't look like there's any tanks that have gone into the field because they're actually smart enough to get into the field, to get into the town, I should say. So the only shots that we have for the moment are on this T-72 AV, and I've learnt my lesson from the first gameplay in trying to be way too aggressive. So I'm going to try and be less aggressive in this one. We do get a nice shot into the tracks of that MAGACH-3. We don't penetrate, but we do track him in place, get some lovely juicy assistance on him, and get the killing blow in. And that's how good that your gun handling can be if you do invest all of your sort of skills on your commander and your equipment into the gun handling DPM. That's the kind of response that you can get out of this 105mm gun. We're just trying to get shots in as this T-72 AV pokes out, but he's doing a good job of poking out, getting a shot and reversing as well. I've had enough in this position. There's so many of us in this location. I'm going to try and progress the battle a little bit. I feel like I'm going to be safe. There's no other tanks in the field, or they would have been shooting at us already. It's just this T-72 AV to worry about, and I've got a ridgeline and a tank in front of me, and you can see there that the pretty good reverse speed of this tank, which is one of the better features, means that I can get out of harm's way when I'm trying to avoid shells from this T-72 AV. We've got 2 shells into him. I'm wiggling backwards and forwards on this wreck, trying to make it awkward for him to hit us. He does hit us, he bounces off of us, and that means that we can progress a little bit more as our Scorpion 90 goes in and finishes him off. Now we're going to progress the other side of this wall into the town. There's a Leopard 1A5 behind that rock there. We're going to go behind this in case he decides to turn his attention to us, but he's got a Scorpion 90 to worry about, and I'm just waiting for him to reverse out so I can get shots into him. He's playing it well at the moment, but he does decide to try and escape, and we get a shell over that ridgeline with the nice gun handling that we now have as he's escaping. And now we're just going to carry on, progress the battle. Run and gun helps us there with a shot in on the move into the RDF LT. We get another one hit there, free aimed on the move. We don't take any damage from that Leopard 1A1, he just gets his shot absorbed into us, and you're seeing here, this is one of the better case scenarios for the MAGACH. It's a very robust tank, it's very forgiving, it does have armour that can be quite troll. It can also be penetrated quite easily if you know where to, but it can also be troll for people that are just auto-aiming or don't know where to shoot it, which means that you can be quite aggressive. And platoons of these things, any kind of platoons of tanks in Cold War will be good, but platoons of these kind of tanks, all using their good DPM, their sort of troll armour, and reasonable manoeuvrability, will be quite powerful as well, and it's just a fantastic support tank. It's not a bad season reward for buying the season pass, I would say, and grinding your way to level 100. I'm not too disappointed, I'm not overly ecstatic, but it's pretty good. It's better than some of the tanks that we have got. So I know I probably wouldn't have penetrated with my standard round there on that FE4-11, so I went for a tracking shot into him, and then I switched to the premium, and then we can go straight through because we are above him on the upper hull. I've got quite a lot of hit points left, so I'm just going to go all in and on a ram on this FE4-11. We do 500 damage there, I believe. Subsequently get a shot under his turret ring there, which is a weak point on the FE4-11, and that ends that pretty frenetic battle, showing you just what this is capable of in a quick battle. So that's a victory where we finish in 3rd place on the team list. We make a profit of 396,000 silver, just shy of 400,000 silver. That's a 2nd class. Yeah, 1360 base experience points, 6.4k direct damage, 2 kills, and 2660 assistance with 460 blocked, and maybe 1 or 2 shells absorbed as well. So I hope that you have enjoyed the review of this tank. Thank you all so much for your support, and until next time, I'll see you on the battlefield, and bye for now.